The Catholic Echo podcast is produced by the Communications Department of the Diocese of Youngstown, with support from the Annual Diocesan Appeal. Bishop David Bonnar and members of our diocesan community discuss your burning spiritual questions. It can be found on catholicecho.org, Facebook, and YouTube. Your host is Dennis Biviano.
Hello and welcome to the Catholic Echo podcast, and a very Merry Christmas to all of our listeners. Today I am joined by Bishop David Bonnar, who has a very special Christmas message to deliver. Thanks so much for your time.
It's always a joy to be with you, Dennis, and to be with all our listeners.
I'd like to ask you how you'll be spending the Christmas Eve and Christmas Day this year. Any favorite traditions with you and your family?
These last 5 Christmases have been a bit different in as much as I'm now an Ohioan and I'm here in Youngstown and my family is in Pittsburgh. I'll be spending it having Mass at the Cathedral, the Vigil, and the 10 o'clock Mass. And in between that, I'll just have some quiet time at my house. I always receive some invitations to stop here and there, and that's always weather permitting, so we'll see what happens. But I find it to be a very prayerful evening, put the lights on the Christmas tree and just kind of sit there and just behold that silent night and all that it portends for each and every one of us.
As the Jubilee year comes to a close, what are your overall reflections on this holy year?
Well, we've done a lot as a diocese to embrace this year of grace. I've visited churches. We even had Mass at the All Souls Cemetery. And of course, the climax for me occurred back in October when I was part of a 39-person pilgrimage to Italy. We began in Venice, went on to Padua and Florence and Assisi, and then we landed in Rome by bus at that point. We got to walk through the 4 holy doors of the 4 major basilicas. I got to meet the Holy Father in person, which was just beyond words. And then to really be pilgrims with those 38 other people, some of whom were my own family. It really brought that sense of pilgrimage, of journeying in faith and hope and love together for me. I will forever cherish those days. They were long anticipated, but boy, they go quickly.
And you, among the U.S. bishops, have approved the consecration of the nation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus in 2026 to accompany the country's 250th anniversary. Could you talk a little bit about that, what that means exactly?
So I think this is an opportunity for us as a church to acknowledge this significant milestone of 250 years of our country, but also to note the importance of our religious sense, that we are people created by God in His image and likeness. And it's important, as we say in the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God, God is our source and our strength. And so this opportunity to consecrate the nation to the Sacred Heart, I think, is something that is very fitting. When you look at the ways of the world, we can so easily lose heart, as I've mentioned in my pastoral letter.
Yes.
Do not lose heart, take heart, behold the Sacred Heart. But we also are facing the reality of artificial intelligence, which is really amazing from a technological standpoint, but the downside of it is that these robots, these engines, do not have hearts. That's another way we can lose heart. And so there's also some continuity between what we recently celebrated with the Eucharistic revival to now shifting to the Sacred Heart. Every time we behold Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, His heart is right there, pouring forth graces and blessings for all of us. This is yet another way for us to image His presence and to behold that. And the image of the heart has its own language too. So we can give our hearts to Him. We can give the hearts of all of our citizens, all those who fought for our freedoms, to Jesus and ask Him to lift up our hearts.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process of crafting your Christmas message to parishioners of the diocese? Is this something that you work on throughout the season? Is this something that you come up with at the last minute? How does that whole process work?
Well, it's funny you should say that because over these last 2 weeks, I've already begun praying about it in my chapel. As I pray the Liturgy of the Hours, it's in the back of my mind. And as I do spiritual reading, it's there. And I don't see it so much as my message, but as God's message for us. And I'm just an instrument of that. I'm just kind of a vehicle. So it's not what Bishop David Bonnar says, but it's what the Holy Spirit wants to say from the voice and the heart of Bishop David Bonnar. So it's a process. I like the question when you said the process, because it is a process. And it isn't like sitting down and writing a paper. You write it and you're done. When you're dealing with the scriptures and the hymns, the prayers, the traditions. It's so rich. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. So you really need to be intentional about giving oneself time and being really intentional about thinking about it and praying about it. And so we bring our experience to our prayer. And for me, a lot of my prayer before I wrote the pastoral letter has been centered on the Sacred Heart. And so I think Christmas is kind of like the Sacred Heart incarnate. The Word becomes flesh and dwells among us. And when we look into that creche, that crib, we see not only an infant, but we see a heart burning with love and mercy and so much life for all.
I was hoping you can give us a little preview of some other things you've been thinking about.
Well, there's those 3 letters, TBD, to be determined. It's still a work in progress, but I think that where it's happening now, and I always have to be ahead of the game, is that it's going to really probably focus on the heart of Jesus and on how Christmas is yet another reason for us not to lose heart, because our God comes among us in human skin to walk with us and, if need be, to carry us. And there's great hope in it. And, this will be towards the end of the Jubilee Year of Hope. I mean, even though the Jubilee Year of Hope is coming to an end, that doesn't mean our hope ceases. This is an impetus for a renewed hope that we take with us into the new year. And, if you look at the crowds on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, it's always, wow, where are we going to put all these people? How are we going to fit all these cars in the parking lot? But I think the message in that is that people want hope. And they want heart. And where there's a heart, there's love. People want to be loved and embraced. And no one does that better than the Christ child.
And that final close to the Jubilee year, that is on?
Actually, it's on the Feast of the Holy Family that it's going to be taking place. And we're looking forward to that, to acknowledge once again the hope that is ours, and also that we remain pilgrims. This is not our true home. We're called to heaven.
Bishop David Bonnar, very Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you and to all our listeners.
We thank Bishop Bonnar for his Christmas blessing. Coming up after a short break, you'll hear an interview I had with Bishop Bonnar on his pilgrimage to Italy with 36 others from our diocese. Much more to come when the Catholic Echo podcast returns. It's time for Parish Patron Saints in the Diocese of Youngstown with Bishop David Bonnar.
St. Teresa of Calcutta was born in Skopje, Macedonia in 1910. From a young age, she was fascinated by religious life. At 18 years old, she left home for Ireland to join the Sisters of Loreto and lived in Darjeeling, India, to complete her novitiate. During her time in India, she felt called by God to assist the poor around her. Then, in 1950, she was given permission to form a new religious community, the Missionaries of Charity, whose 4th vow was to serve the poorest of the poor. In 1979, she received the Nobel Peace Prize for her work of charity. St. Teresa of Calcutta is a patron saint of World Youth Day, the Missionaries of Charity, the Archdiocese of Calcutta, and St. Teresa of Calcutta Parish in Warren. Her feast day is September 5th, so happy feast day of St. Teresa to our friends in Warren. St. Teresa of Calcutta, pray for us.
The Catholic Echo magazine is delivered free of charge to anyone who is registered at a parish in the Diocese of Youngstown, but subscriptions are also available for non-parishioners. A subscription costs $40 per year, and you can buy one for yourself or gift a subscription to a loved one. Email catholicecho@youngstowndiocese.org for more information.
Welcome back. A couple months back, I had the chance to interview Bishop David Bonnar right as he returned from a 11-day pilgrimage to Rome. Here's a look back at our conversation. Happy to be joined by Bishop David Bonnar, back from his 11-day pilgrimage to Italy for the 2025 Jubilee. Just some of the places you had the chance to visit with Father John Michael Lavelle, Rachel Erbelich, and 39 total people from our diocese. You had the chance to go to Venice, Florence, Assisi, Rome, and of course Vatican City. Can you tell us a little background about this trip and the significance of this pilgrimage?
Well, we're in the Holy Year, which is a Jubilee Year of Hope, and
every 25 years this happens. And so we've had some local commemorations of the Holy Year, but I thought it would be to our advantage to offer something that would plug us into the universal church. And so that's where the idea for a Jubilee pilgrimage was born. We left Philadelphia and landed in Venice. We were in Venice for a few days, and what a wonderful experience that was. I mean, those people don't have cars, they have boats.
Yes.
And the streets are so narrow because everybody walks. And so many islands. And from Venice, we went to Padua to the shrine of St. Anthony, and we prayed there. We had a beautiful Mass there. And then we made our way to Assisi, the birthplace of St. Francis and St. Clare. And we spent the night there, and the next day we went to the beautiful Basilica of San Francesco, and then we spent some time in Hilltown having lunch and just got to see the heart of Carlo Acutis. That was at the cathedral. His body was in another place, and so we were cramped for time, and with the Sacred Heart and all, I just really wanted to go see his heart in the reliquary. Then from Assisi, we went to Florence, which is known for its art, its leather, and its gold. We spent Friday night, all day Saturday there. We got to go to the Accademia, the beautiful museum. We saw the stunning image of David, along with so many other magnificent pieces of art. And then from there on Sunday to Rome. And when we arrived in Rome, early Sunday afternoon, we went to the catacombs of St. Domitilla. Catacombs is the place where the early Christians were buried. Yes. And there's a beautiful basilica underneath the ground where we celebrated Holy Mass. We got a tour of the catacombs. Interestingly enough, we bumped into a lot of people from our neighboring dioceses along the way. There was a group there from Cleveland that were celebrating Mass before us. And then after the catacombs, we headed to our hotel where we spent the next 3 days in the eternal city of Rome. And of course, the climax of that was the general audience where I got to meet our Holy Father for the first time. We also got to see the Vatican museums. We walked through all the holy doors. And we had a special treat of having Mass in one of the side chapels in the crypt of St. Peter's Basilica.
Oh, wow.
It's called the Irish Chapel, and we honored St. Columba, our patron, and we were so blessed to have with us to preach that day Father Sean Conaway, one of our own who works in one of the dicasteries in Rome. So it was a magnificent trip. It was a great time. And just a wonderful group of people, among whom were my 2 sisters, my niece, and my 1 brother-in-law. So it was great.
I want to get back to passing through the holy doors. That's something that's around once every 25 years. Talk about the significance of that.
Let me just say that there are 4 major basilicas in Rome. St. Peter's Basilica, there's Santa Maria Maggiore, there's St. John Lateran, and there's St. Paul outside the walls. And every 25 years, there is a door at the entranceway of each of those basilicas that is sealed 24 years, but then in the 25th year or so, it is opened by the Holy Father. And during that holy time, people come on pilgrimage to visit all 4 basilicas and cross that threshold. And as they do so, they usually offer a prayer, a petition, which I did, and I sent those back. They were on our social media. We were intentional about all of that, and people were taking video of that. Each of the basilicas, in some cases, there was a long line. Like when we went to St. Mary Major, there was an incredibly long line, and the reason for that was that's where Pope Francis was laid to rest. And I was so grateful to go and pay respects there to Pope Francis and just thank him for the gift that he's been to the church. I was talking to my sister, and she noticed she had bought some rosaries, and she noticed that there were 4 holy doors on the rosary. So she says, what a keepsake that is for me, because I walked through all 4 of those holy doors.
The opportunity to shake hands with our new Pope, Leo the 14th. Did you know that was going to happen, and what did you say to him?
I'll tell you, I've been to 3 Super Bowls, and I was sitting up there, and I was thinking, with all due respect, it doesn't get any better than that. The only place higher than that is heaven. When you're a bishop, there's a protocol where you can go through a special entrance and bypass the crowd, and you're invited to sit up there close to the Holy Father. And when the audience is over, each bishop, one by one, comes up and greets the Holy Father. And I had the honor of doing that. As I took both of his hands and he took my hands, I looked into his eyes, and I could speak in English. The last time I was in Rome and met Pope Francis at baby bishop school, I had to speak in Italian because he didn't speak English. So I just said, Your Holiness, I am David Bonnar from the Diocese of Youngstown. I bring with me prayers and greetings of the pilgrims who are joining me on this pilgrimage. as well as the entire Church of Youngstown. Thank you for saying yes, and God bless you.
And you gave him a gift too?
Yes, we had prepared a gift, the pastoral letter, our coin that has the image of the Sacred Heart from the Sacred Heart altar in the cathedral, as well as the coat of arms of the diocese. There were a few other little Youngstown things we put in there. I did not want to present it to him in that moment because it's so big. So I had happened to have been at a meeting in one of the dicasteries, and I gave it to one of the Swiss guards. He knew where to take it, and so I was grateful for that.
And being a big Steelers fan, I have to ask you about the Steelers bar I'm sure you knew about from years past.
Yes, I took my two sisters and my one brother-in-law. We had a little beverage there. A group from Steubenville, our neighboring diocese. There were two priests who had some people that they were traveling with. We got to speak a little bit about, our roots. That was a great experience. And, after the general audience, one of the ladies in our traveling group, who happens to be from Pittsburgh, pulled out a terrible towel, and Bishop Fernandez from Columbus happened to be there. And he's a big Steeler fan, too.
Okay.
Yeah. He got his picture taken with her in the terrible towel.
Very good. And Bishop Bonnar, just the last question. As we come to the end of the 2025 Jubilee, which actually started on December 24th of 2024 and commences on January 6th, 2026, what did you learn from the last year? And I guess how can we continue to walk as pilgrims of hope?
Well, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from this experience. Certainly, I think we all need to be people of hope. And that's one of the things that Pope Francis called our attention to, and Pope Leo has shown great continuity in that. But I think the other thing is that there's a lot of people, in spite of what we may hear in the news or read on the internet, God is alive and God is speaking to people's hearts. I mean, it was body to body in the basilicas, in the Vatican Museum, on the streets of Rome. People are searching, they're seeking God from all over the world. And what that says to me is the church is alive and it's growing. And there's so many gifts that we all bring to the table. And there's nothing that Jesus wants more than for us all to be one.
Bishop Bonnar, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Thank you, Dennis.
Many thanks to Bishop David Bonnar for his Christmas message and reflection on his time spent in Rome this past October. That concludes this episode of the Catholic Echo podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, CatholicEcho.org, or your favorite podcasting platform. I'm your host, Dennis Biviano, and on behalf of the rest of our communications team, thanks for listening and have a very Merry Christmas with family and friends.
The Catholic Echo podcast is a production of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Youngstown. Have a blessed day, and may God be with you.